So one thing that is new to the market, and a lot of people probably haven't seen these before, it's really big in South Africa, but it's called a dingle dangle. Now this thing is, it's just essentially a molded piece of foam, right? But the idea behind this is you can, number one, build your bait behind it or around it, and it also floats your bait up off the bottom, so you're kind of getting your bait away from you know, the shit fish on the bottom, like the stingrays and all that. You know, it's actually keeping your hook and your bait above the bottom, and you know, you're going to get less snags as well. But these things, Vexed have brought them out. They're available, I think, in about 3 different sizes, and they come rigged and unrigged. And I don't really know how to use one properly, but Willie has just rigged his rig up, and we are going to give you a bit of a rundown on the whole system of how to use this dingle dangle product, and how it's going to help you actually catch more fish. And this is a pre-rigged one, so like I said, you can buy them in a 3-pack like this, rigged or unrigged, so you can use whatever hooks you prefer. But yeah, I'll go and grab Willie and we'll run you through it.
Alright guys, I'm just going to explain a little bit more about the dingle dangle concept. Now, the concept of a dingle dangle is basically suspending your bait below the hook. So here's one that I thrashed last night and caught all sorts of things on it. It's really done some work. I've actually changed the dangle once during the night of fishing, so the tailor which ripped into it, and a wobbegong that chewed it up a bit, so you can easily slip them onto the hook. But what it does is you actually tie the bait, and we're going to show a bait a description of rigging a bait in a minute. You tie the bait around here, so the bait sits there like that, hence on the picture, if you can zoom in on that. So basically your bait sits below the hook, so a big fish that can take that bait will get hooked on that hook. You won't get too many pickers on that style of rig. Now, a little bit about the background of a dingle dangle. The Poms came up with the idea for carp fishing, but they didn't have flotation on it. It was just like a little bit of PE or braided line below a hook, and they used to put their boilie things or little baits on there for carp and then whip them on and throw them out. Now, the South Africans are the ones that made this version of dingle dangle that's more, I suppose, applicable to surf, beach and rock fishing. Now, the South Africans did such a good job on perfecting this that the Poms actually took it back and applied it to their surf fishing as well. So there's a few people who'll have some different ideas on that, but that's what I reckon from the research I've done on dangles. And now Aussies, like a lot of types of beach fishing configurations and rigs and styles, we've picked it up from the South Africans, and basically we do not have to modify it or change it for our Australian conditions, because South African surf beach conditions and ours are very similar. It's a bit of the same ocean out there as well, so we really just use slightly different baits, but in terms of technique wise on rigging them up, it's pretty much the same. Now you can buy a dingle dangle like that and put your own hook on if you like a specific mustard or an owner or a BKK, or you can buy a rig like this, which is already, and this rig that I'm about to show you here is this exact rig, and that's got a 3 times strong circle hook on there. It's a Mutsu type circle. It's a little bit more open, so that's the circle there. That's the one I prefer. It's a little bit more open. It's not so aggressive in terms of the hook point turning right in, so you tend to get bigger tailor on it a little bit easier. So basically you can put a J hook on there if you want. You can't really put a set of gangs, okay, that's a bit primitive, but any type of single hook. Now you can also get these with the hooks on them, so it basically comes with the dangle and the hook like that. So or you can make them at home. Just cut up your missus yoga mat. She loves it. She thinks she's getting taller every time she lays down on it. You got to cut it nice and sharp so she can't notice that you're pinching some off it. The yoga mat we got at home now is about 3 foot long, so it's just closed cell foam. Through the middle is Dacron, wire, or PE. It doesn't really matter. This is not taking any load, so you don't have to beef that up too much, because when the fish is hooked, that is, you know, it doesn't connect to your line. So basically the line comes through here, you're attached to that. That's just carrying your bait. Now how does it work? What happens, I'm going to tie a bait a little bit later on and show you, but I'm just going to wind this up a little bit. Okay, so I'll show you this end first. This is a pulley rig, so it pulls through a swivel.
Just give us a quick look at the tip of that rig, just so it's the first time I've seen this.
So this is basically it. You have a swivel attached to your main line, and that swivel runs between this swivel here. You put a little bead on there for protection, and you can get that sliding. I'm pulling it all the way through to that bead there. So what will happen is when you cast out, you attach your bait. So your bait is tied onto the bottom of that, really proud. What you'll do is I'm just going to wind this up a little bit. You'll attach your bait to that. Because it's running, you get the perfect, I'll just show you nice and close how that goes in there. See that little split ring at the bottom? That will hold it on there. So your bait is tied around here. And when you cast, it goes out like that. So there's no swinging around like this. You got a beautiful streamlined bait. We use a grapnel sinker that you bend these out a little bit, and you have a nice grapnel sinker that'll hold the bottom. When that hits the water, you just give it a little bit of a yank and that will flick off. Usually on impact to the water, that will flick off anyway. Now what will happen, I'm just going to lower this down again. Once you cast this out, your sinker will hit the seafloor, and this, it's not that angle, right? Because you're going to be back on this sort of angle, and this here, with your bait on it, depending on how much foam and how much bait, will just come up off the bottom a bit, usually in surge. Now if there's crabs or rays on the bottom, usually they won't take your bait or destroy your bait. Stingrays can come up, but generally this is a crab resistant rig. Now if you use a small bait with a lot of foam, you can actually get this happening. So it's right up, it's visible, no crabs, less rays, and the fish can really home in on it and smash it. It looks really natural. And what will happen, if I'm a dirty big mulloway and I take that hook will turn in the corner of its jaw, and this is where the good part goes. If you just focus on that section there, this will pull through. Pull through, pull through, pull through, and now look at the length I have of leader. This is 80 pounds. This is 120 pounds. I have a couple of meters of line, which is going to be really good abrasion resistance against reef or the fish or the shark's body. So it's really, really cool to have that length. If your sinker gets hooked on the reef on the way in, that clip will generally pull through it free. So you can use a sacrificial, but in this area we're fishing here, there's not much snag, so I'm not using a sacrificial. So that is the pulley rig, guys. Try it. It takes a little bit of time to learn how to put a bait on properly, but I'm going to do a simple one and a more complicated one in a minute. But you can really work out how you want to bait. There's no set ways of how to do it, how there's a yes or a no. You try different baits in different ways. As long as it works for you, this rig will improve your fishing. Okay, I'm going to show you how to rig up or bait up a dingle dangle for surf fishing. So this is my flotation. It's pinned through with Dacron. You can use PE or whatever, and that little ring there is going to go on the bottom of either a sinker like that clip, or on the top of the pulley rig. I'll show you, it actually comes with a little clip, but I'm just going to show you there's many ways of rigging these up, guys. So I'm going to be a little bit primitive because I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but you don't need to have the baits perfect, but you need to get them as good as you possibly can. So to start off with, I've just whipped the sides off a tailor, which is in there. These little coolers are so cool because you can carry them into a beach. They got a cutting board on the top. So I got my tailor in there. I've just taken a fillet off him and I've just prepared a nice little cut bait. So what we got to do is figure out whether you want to put the skin on the inside or the skin on the outside. If there's a lot of pickers around, you want the skin on the outside. If there's not so many pickers, the skin on the inside with all that flesh on the outside like that. So this is just one way of doing it. So what I'm going to do here is just show you how I bed the bait. So I just get just the tip of the hook and just pinch that skin. It's really tough. This is a tailor we just caught, so it's really, really tough. And now you got to start building a bait around this foam, keeping in mind that needs to clip to the sinker, so we're going to have to trim that. So these are the threads. The threads available, different diameters of thread. So basically the big bait thread is one I like to use for heads and really heavy baits. The pilly thread's good for little soft baits because it's a thinner one. And the bottom meat thread is a bit of a universal one. So I'm just going to show you, I've got a bottom meat thread open now. So let's just start building this bait. So once you set that in, I hold the top there and then you get your bait thread, get it stuck to the bait like that, and you start working it. A little bit hairy with the wind. You start working the bait around. I'll try and do this slow so you can focus. Once you've got it, I suppose, cinched in there a little bit, just start working it from the top, and we'll move back up to the top later once we've started to fold it down. All right, now you're just making a streamlined sort of cigar shape, I guess, and always pushing that in. So you push it in, and just keep whipping down. Now I'm starting to get some shape happening. Don't be afraid to use quite a bit of thread. I nearly said Fred because everyone seems to call it Fred, so I was going to join the bandwagon, but I'm going to use mine. Alright, so here we go, we're building a bait. Now once we get to here, depending on how much time, how many pickers there are, and how nice you want this bait to look, that is the beginning of the bait. Now after that you can build the bait up using other stuff like squid, other fish fillets. You can put anything on there, but make sure that you go around here to secure that Dacron as well. The Dacron loop, you don't want that moving around too much. So there we go, there's the start. Now this section here we're going to have to trim up. It's like a badly packed kebab at the moment, so we're just going to trim this up a little bit. Now again, like I was saying with the fish, a hair in your hamburger, the fish don't care. Well, you know what, a mulloway or a jewfish or a tailor or a snapper, he wants to eat that. So that's a very simple bait. Now if I want to build that a little bit chunkier, I'll just cut off another little section there. What I'll do is if I want to give it some flash, I will put it skin up. And now I've got a skin up, so I've got flash, I've got the stink from the flesh, which is going to be burling the water as the pickers get hold of it, all the little reefies. So I'm just building this bigger. Now you don't always need to build it bigger, but if there's a lot of pickers out there, I want them to work for it. By having that little flap over the top there, I don't like my baits too long. You've still got your sinker attachment there. So that's a very simple bait. I can't make this go too long, and I don't spend too long on my baits. I've seen guys spend half an hour on a bait, and while they're doing that, I'm just filling my bag. So basically, there's some guys who are really artful, they're very arty, and they can get them beautiful. Some of the really good South African anglers, I've seen some beautiful baits, but I'll just quickly pull that through your leg. You feel that? All right, this is your pulley rig, which is recommended to use a dingle dangle. Move that across. That's your pulley rig. So what will happen is, when you're ready to cast it, that little ring that I showed you before can go in there or on the rig itself, on there. I have to use two hands for this. So see that little clip there and that little ring there, that will go on there. I'll see if I can keep it together. This is not the right way to do it, but for the camera I'll do that. Oh my lord, look at that. Look at that, that's ready to go. So when on impact of the water, that will break off. Do you want to see me rip it out? All right, let's do it. Not really 100% prepared. This is a surf casting reel. It's a sensor surf reel with a Saltiga surf rod. This is high mount. So it's a beautiful setup. Just hold that, don't drop it because it will fall off. Keep holding it. All right, here we go. I'm gonna let rip. So the idea of a streamlined bait is that's gonna stay together. It's not gonna flap around, which will allow me to get a bit more distance on the cast. So, I haven't got my casting finger on, so I'll probably split my finger open. About a drop of about that long is nice. Make sure your drag's tight or you'll cut your finger. Aiming out there, I lay the bait back towards you and just rip it out. She's out there. She's out there, guys. So now that sinker, you just give it a little bit of a shake like that to make sure that the bait comes up off that clip. And now that bait will be sort of down here, coming up to there in the surge, just moving around there. With the amount of foam versus meat I've got in that bait, the crabs aren't going to get it. The rays probably won't get it, but the mulloway will see it from across the gutter, and they'll come through and they'll smash it, hopefully.
We've got another hook up. Any good?
Yeah, good.
Oh, good. Good. What do you think, Willie?
I don't know.
I just saw the rod. Oh. Oh.